I'm Danielle Metz.
I'm Robert Vaughn.
And this is the Danielle Metz Show. Quote, we have a complete breakdown of the basic needs of civilization. Right now we have 3 prongs of airborne disease. Tuberculosis is exploding in rodent-borne, stated Drew Pinsky to Laura Ingraham on Fox News recently. And what third world hellhole is Dr. Drew describing? Los Angeles. Sorry, I shouldn't use the term third world because, as Dr. Drew points out, this is not third world. This is medieval. Third world countries are insulted if they're accused of being like this. At least 6 LAPD officers are showing signs of typhoid fever and a typhus-like illness after working in or near the city's homeless camps. There's an imminent threat of an outbreak of the bubonic plague. Rats are overrunning the city streets, and the city council is considering a ban or moratorium on using rat poison because of course they are. We've talked on previous shows about the condition in San Fran, which has only worsened. The homelessness has increased by double-digit percentages in 3 Bay Area counties over 2 years. San Francisco has so many homeless that members of the transient population are building makeshift boats to live on the famous bay in order to escape the crowded encampments. Taxes continue to escalate in order to throw more money at a problem that only continues to escalate in turn. Funny how that works. California is a leftist, progressive, democratic stronghold. The political elites that represent it live well above the problems they have encouraged, much in the same way the aristocrats in the days of old lived above the peasants. We look to Venezuela to see the effects of socialism, but it is very much visible here in the West in such reasons. Poverty, homelessness, and disease run rampant in the most prosperous country in the world because of leftist policies, and yet people still cry out for socialist programs. So, Robert, will it take a literal pandemic to finally wake people up to the evil failures of socialism?
Oh no, it takes more than that. It takes the deaths of tens of thousands, if not millions. Just look at history and how long it took for example, the Soviet Union to abandon their communism, how hard it is for Venezuela to come to the realization that they're living in a hellhole. There's still millions of people in Venezuela who love the fact that their government is socialist.
Yes, and even the representative, the one that's challenging the current president, he is a socialist himself. They're not giving up socialism. They just don't like that guy doing socialism. They want this guy to do socialism because he's going to do it better.
What is the name of the book that Ayn Rand wrote? Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. They don't know about it. They have no idea about individualism, capitalism, freedom. They really don't. So they're struggling in this bloody quagmire of corruption and government being their god. And there's no way out for them except to be educated on what it means to be free and individual and capitalistic.
Well, don't you think that reality itself would be smacking them upside the head? Like, looking in the West specifically, because we have the contrast between what's going on in California, what goes on in the rest of the United States. Do they not see that, look, this is what happens? And all you're doing is creating an elite class of leftist politicians who live well above the fray, who don't take any responsibility or have to deal with any of the impacts of the policies that they implement. And they seem happy and willing to let these people to die on the streets, literally, from mass disease, poverty, and there's mental illness, there's drug abuse, there's all that, and they're happy. They subsidize it. They throw money at it to encourage it. They don't clean it out. They don't clean house. They seem to enjoy it as long as they don't have to deal with it.
When you're a hammer, everything that you see looks like a nail. And when you're government, every problem that you see, you have to throw money at it. You have to regulate. You have to legislate, because that's what legislators do. They legislate. So that's not how they're going to get out of this. You have to get out of it through a cultural shift. You have to get out of it, and I'm serious. People will die, and people are dying. Who's kidding you here? Yeah. People are dying because of socialism and because of the corrupt government in the United States, especially in California and places like that. Just look at Detroit. This is a polarization, right? You get places like Detroit where they're democratically controlled and the social programs are huge. So all of a sudden people go to Detroit. What kind of people? The people who want handouts.
Exactly.
Because they don't have the work. The government will give money for them. And so it becomes a festering pool of people who are bent on being lazy and just taking rather than giving. And of course, when you get that kind of an atmosphere, what happens is you have a brain drain. The good people, the hard, productive working people, the people who at least have some self-esteem, they don't even have to be hard workers or whatever, they just have some self-esteem about them, they leave. They leave because they can't stand the cesspool they're living in. And
Yeah,
so
they create
it just
ghettos.
exacerbates it. Yes, you get the ghettos, yeah. So Detroit's a ghetto, parts of Chicago are a ghetto, Washington D.C. is a ghetto, and now San Francisco is a bloody ghetto.
And
And
Los
it can only get
Angeles.
more polarized. It's getting more polarized. What you need to do is, like I said, the people of these cities are still going to vote for more government. They're not going to be voting for a Republican or a capitalist or business people to run their city. They're going to continue to see the cess around them and to vote the government, to vote, to give them more money to clean it up.
Well,
It'll only get worse.
Well, that's the thing, is because they see government not as the problem, they see government as a solution. So
Yeah.
they figure, well, we need one more law, or we need one more money to throw at it, or more government. That's the problem. We don't have enough of X. When that's not the problem. The problem is the government should be enforcing the laws that are already on the books, because there are laws in California and Los Angeles and San Fran where encampments aren't legally allowed, but they don't enforce them. Why? Because it's politically incorrect to do so. And a lot of these people are illegal immigrants coming across the border by the tens of thousands that are all there for handouts. They have no documentation. They're bringing diseases. They're bringing criminality. And because of political correctness, you can't say that illegal immigrants is wrong. They're only immigrants. Then you're subsidized. Whatever you subsidize, you get more of. And that's what they're doing. They're subsidizing poverty, so they get more poverty. They're subsidizing disease, so they get more disease. They're subsidizing drug use, so they get more drug use. They're subsidizing all these things, and they don't see that that is the problem. And I don't know if they ever will until it crashes and burns, which is my fear.
Yes, and it will crash and burn. It has to, because that's the inevitable result of things like this.
Have to hit rock bottom before you get better.
Like I say, the solution is a cultural shift, and that only happens through a very massive effort through parenting, through the schools, through the actual culture of movies, television, literature, art, and a political shift as well. And I don't see it happening anytime soon. Now, they say that Generation Z is perhaps the most conservative of generations in a long time.
Generation Z.
Generation whatever. and there may be hope there that they can see beyond all this nonsense. And I think that with the internet, people doing an end run around the mainstream media and seeing what's really going on in the world, Generation Z.
Thank you.
That hurt to say that. Generation Z are wisening up, but that's not enough. It's not enough for them to just see on YouTube that what's going on in the real world, to actually see a full-length Donald Trump speech rather than the outtakes that they twist and turn and make him look like an idiot. That's helpful, but what they need is the right vocabulary. Listen to me.
There you go.
Is the
Thus
right
proving the
vocabulary
point.
to be able to understand the arguments and to articulate the arguments and to perpetuate the arguments in favor of things like individualism and capitalism. It's a slow process, but they have to read the right books. They have to write the right books too. It's no use going back 50 to 100 years or whatever to picking up an Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, or an Ayn Rand Atlas Shrugged. It has to come from them so that they can take ownership of it. We need some young writers out there writing the things that will inspire them to be independent and self-reliant. And hopefully there's some stuff out there. I don't read a lot of the newer age books these days, especially if they're written by teenagers or for teenagers, whatever. That's not my market.
Not your bag?
No, man, it's not my bag. But if those books are being written out there, they should be at least. And same with the movies. So we're relying on places like Hollywood to give us strong role models of independent people. You mentioned one last week, I think it was Iron Man. Iron Man, that was a great movie about a competent man. Love that kind of stuff. The Robert A. Heinlein type of hero. You need more of that. But what do we get out of Hollywood? Nothing but tripe.
Yep.
Absolutely
And
saccharine
funny that they're
filled
based
tripe.
in Los Angeles, isn't it? Okay, question for you. If you were the mayor of Los Angeles by some stroke of luck, what would you do to end the homelessness problem and the drug abuse problem and the encampments and stuff? What would be the first tack you'd take?
I'd use the same tactic that, unfortunately I forget his name, but there was a mayor and a police chief in New York City back in the early 80s, I believe, which employed what's called the broken window concept.
Wasn't that Giuliani?
It could very well have been. Like I said, I forget his name.
Pretty
and
sure
I don't even recall it. But if it was Giuliani, it's the broken window concept that the slightest infractions of the rules that are on the books and the laws that are on the books must be enforced. What it does is it drives out all criminality. Well, almost all criminality, except the blue-collar criminality, or white-collar criminality, I should say. So if you're jaywalking, you get a ticket. If you're lying on the street, on the public sidewalk, you get taken to jail and booked and ticketed or whatever, and fined and convicted and then jailed, whatever. Everything has to be enforced. If you're defecating on the streets in front of a cop, the cop should arrest you right away for indecency and gross indecency. But those things aren't being done.
No.
You've got to enforce the laws that are already on the books.
It's funny you brought up the New York, because New York City actually has more homeless people than Los Angeles, and yet they don't have this problem. Because
I don't know about the stats.
yeah, that was the Tim Pool mentioned that he did a show on this, and what I find interesting is the current mayor of New York is Democratic, and a complete, I can't remember his name, Bill de Blasio is at I believe so, he's running for president, but because of what the groundwork that Giuliani put in place, they don't have nearly the problems that they have out in California, because that has been Democratic stronghold for decades. Arnold Schwarzenegger does not qualify as a Republican after the first couple months, and since then they just been downhill, where New York actually had a Republican in office that set the tone, and they've maintained it quite well.
Yeah, a couple of examples of this broken window concept would be, one, it would be in London, Ontario. There's a insurance agent. It's the home for what's the name of the insurance agent, insurance company in London that this escaped me.
I don't know. State Farm?
No, but anyway, it doesn't matter. They're headquartered there, and their building, the lawn around their building is immaculate. It's like a putting green on a golf course. And you watch the behavior of people as they walk around that building, they do not step on the grass. There's no sign saying don't step on the grass. It's just that, wow, they look at that lawn and they're going, I'm not stepping on that grass. While if you go the City Hall, which is just in the opposite kitty corner to them, of course.
London Life.
London Life, thank you. London Life. The City Hall is just kitty corner to them, and of course they have this courtyard out the back, and it's filled with weeds, and it's unkempt and uncut, and it's gone to nature because they don't want to use pesticides or whatever, God forbid. And of course people just walk on it, and it just gets worse and worse. That's the broken window concept. If you fix the window and it looks great and everybody fixes their windows, nobody wants to break a window.
Yep.
In New York City, I was there in about 1986 or so, right around when this was happening. And I was in the subway, and all of the subway cars were just starting to be changed and cleaned up. So I got all these new Bombardier subway cars. And do you remember that old 70s movie, The Warriors?
No.
Warriors come out to play.
Sounds familiar,
okay.
but no, I didn't see it.
You had to see it. But anyway, the Bronx and New York City were hellholes and graffiti everywhere. And while I was sitting in the subway station, all brand new subway cars, all cleaned up, looked great. And then one of the cars that had yet to be cleaned up rolled by. And I got into it. And there was not a spot bigger than this. Ooh, sorry.
Do I have to do a Heil Hitler symbol now?
Bigger than that did not have graffiti on it. And my wife and I just look at the car and just stunned amazement, wow, this was just amazing. This used to be New York City, but now it's all pretty and clean. And the clean cars, no graffiti. Nobody wanted to touch those pristine walls. there's a psychological thing to it. You don't want to be the first to dance. You don't want to be the first to write graffiti on a brand new subway car. But anyway, that's the concept. So the law has to be enforced.
Also the same thing as when you're in your own house. Okay, I clean the kitchen on a regular basis. If the kitchen is clean, no one leaves the dirty dishes. As soon as the first person puts the dirty dish next to the sink and doesn't clean it, suddenly there's 10 dirty dishes. And that's just the mentality. You don't want to wreck the pristine. You don't want to disrupt the order of things. And that is what you're showing, is law and order. And there's order in your household, and there's law and order out in society, and that is the thing that has to be maintained in order to perpetuate it.
Yeah, the first person to leave the dirty dish, the first person to write on the wall, whatever, is almost like, and it stays there, is giving approval for the next person to come along saying, oh, I can do this, can I? Well, then I'm going to do it too.
Exactly.
So, no, enforce the laws. Enforce the laws. That's what I do if I'm the mayor of San Fran.
I hope they do it soon, because that's beautiful country out there. My uncle used to live in San Juan Capistrano. I went and visited him when I was a teenager, and it's just beautiful out there. It's like the most gorgeous country. Outside New York State. New York State's pretty too. I like that one too. But the fact that they're letting this happen to some of the most iconic cities in the United States is despicable. So they better start enforcing that law.
Yeah.
So
clean up your room.
Yeah, clean up your room. Exactly. So, talk to you soon. Behave yourself, and we'll talk again next week. Cheers.
If you've enjoyed this presentation, visit justrightmedia.org for more programming that's not right-wing, it's just right.